Hello, and thank you for joining me. My name is Mariah with Yoga Mojo and Movement Therapy in Vancouver, Washington. And today I want to talk about how we can make these little feet of ours happy. Our feet do so much work for us day to day. We don't even consider what they do for us. And when we smush them into shoes, especially really narrow, pointed toes, our feet don't get the kind of movement that they really need to help us in our daily activities, whether that's walking or running or going up the stairs. So I'm going to show you how to give your feet a little self-massage. What I have here are yoga tune-up balls in a tote. You can get these on Amazon for about 20 bucks. I'll send a link on my blog post here so you can check those out. You can also do this work with a racquetball, a tennis ball, maybe a dog toy or a cat toy, depending on the size. I don't recommend a golf ball or a lacrosse ball. Those are pretty hard. And we want something where you can squeeze it and has a little bit of give, much like a racquetball. This work is by Jill Miller. And she wrote this amazing book called The Role Model Method. And I highly, highly recommend it if you want to learn how to roll out anything that might be tender or needs a little TLC in your body. So let's get started with rolling out our feet. And just so you know, this work can be done standing. If you do standing, I highly recommend putting your hand against a wall or on top of a chair to help you balance so you're not having to worry about balancing while you're doing the work. Or you can do it seated in a chair. If your feet are really sensitive when you start using the ball underneath your feet and you're wincing and you're kind of making faces, maybe it would be more appropriate for you to sit down so that you don't have a lot of weight coming down onto your feet and you can take it pretty lightly to start. So let's get started. Thank you. To begin, take one yoga tune-up ball and place it directly under the center of your foot and then bring your heel down. Your foot will angle out from side to side so that you're rolling across the tissues of your foot. We're looking for any spots that feel tender or like they need a little TLC. Now, if anything in here is creating pain, we need to back off and come back to this. In other words, if you have plantar fasciitis or anything like that happening right now, this work might be too intense, and it may be better to roll your foot over a frozen water bottle or to simply place a bag of frozen peas or corn underneath your foot to help get those tissues so that they're not as inflamed. And then when your tissues feel better, we can come back and massage underneath the feet. So as we explore here, if you're finding any areas that feel tender, a lot of times the arch of the foot right in here can get sensitive. We're going to want to hold and press the foot down for just a moment. You can gauge how much weight you place on the foot here. It doesn't have to be your full body weight, whatever is tolerable, but just giving that area that's sensitive a little pressure. After holding that for about 20 or 30 seconds, then you can start to move again and creating that wipe, and hopefully the tissues in there are starting to feel a little bit better. The ball can now move up towards the ball of the foot, right underneath the toes. And again, that side to side motion, looking for any sensitive areas. And once again, notice that you can be in control of how much weight you place on the ball. You can keep this work really light if your feet are sensitive, or if your feet are feeling pretty good and they're enjoying the massage, feel free to step down on that ball a little more. And after you've done this and we've explored going across the tissues, then we're going to create an up and down movement where we take the ball, starting at the top outside of the foot, and we're going to create lines. So I'm rolling up and down the tissues of my foot. And again, you can create however much pressure you want. So you can put a lot of your body weight into this, or you can keep it light. Sitting in a chair will also help if your feet are really, really tender, and it will allow you to just gently roll out your feet. So I'm just kind of gliding the ball up and down my foot, getting all of those tissues from right underneath the toes all the way down the heel. Again, exploring for any areas that feel a little sensitive. Got a little sensitive spot right here in the middle, so I'm going to go back and do a little bit of that side to side motion. And if you find an area that's sensitive and still doesn't really release after that compression, then create little circles around that area that feels sensitive. Maybe not rolling on it directly, but rolling the tissues next to it. That will help get those tissues to release, so that when you go back to the spot that feels really tender, you can get back in there and maybe start to get that area, that specific spot to release. So once I've rolled out this area of my foot pretty well, I'm going to bring the ball right underneath my heel and then take my heel side to side. Notice how the top of my foot is placed on the earth. Haven't moved it. I'm just moving that heel side to side, so that again, I'm getting into the tissues right in there. And when I'm finished with that, I'll bring the ball right underneath my toes. And like I'm creating a fist with my foot, I'm going to grip my toes around the ball. And then I'm going to lift them up and try to create as much space between my toes as possible. You'll notice if your feet have been crammed into tight shoes or narrow pointed toe shoes, that lifting your toes and creating a lot of space between them is probably pretty challenging, which is why this work is so healthy. We need to be able to move our feet and move our toes in all the possible areas they can, which helps us in our own walking, running, our own everyday movements. So after you've done this a couple times, go ahead and wrap your toes around the ball one more time. And then, big challenge, try to lift just your big toe. Again, this might be really challenging. It took me a long time to figure out how that I can just lift my big toe without the other toes lifting up. So practice that. And then maybe the second toe feels like lifting. You can see mine is still working on it. And then the third, and when I work on the third, all the others come up. So just a little bit of fun here, trying to see how much coordination we can get in our toes. It's amazing how disconnected they can get. They're so far away from our brain, and we often don't pay a lot of attention to our feet, although they do so much for us. And now, let's go ahead and roll out the other foot. So we're going to begin with that foot, the ball right underneath the center of my foot, heel down. And I'm going to swing my foot from side to side, rolling across those tissues. So why is this work important? Why does it feel so good to massage the bottom of your feet? Hopefully it feels good to you. It's because these tissues, the fascia that's underneath your foot, actually runs all the way up. It connects to it's the same one line of fascia that runs at the back of your leg, up your back body, up your back of your neck, back of your head, and connects right at your eyebrow. So that one line of connective tissue, if something is off in our feet, say they have been crammed into really tight shoes, or you wore the wrong shoes one day, you went running and didn't have the right shoes on, it can affect everything else in our body. When I worked in an office, I actually got a headache every day by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And when I stopped wearing pumps, little high heels, my headaches went away. So what we do with our feet makes a huge difference to the rest of us. So you can see now I've slid the ball right up underneath the ball of my foot, and I'm now just taking that side-to-side motion there. Everything's feeling pretty good on this side, so now I'm going to start rolling from top all the way down, creating those lines so that I'm working the outside of the foot, the middle of the foot, the inside, getting all those areas. And again, right in this area in the arch sometimes can get pretty sensitive, mine is. So I'm just kind of really putting some weight into there and really trying to, almost like I'm trying to iron out that spot that's tender. And again, you can also compress and hold for a moment, holding that for about 20 or 30 seconds. And then you can create little circles around that area that's sensitive, really trying to work into those tissues. This is all pretty intuitive work. It's all about feeling into the tender spots and really trying to work with them and get them to release. Think about when we cut ourselves with a knife, accidentally, chopping vegetables. We put pressure on that wound to stop it from bleeding. It's kind of a similar concept when we find a tender spot and we press into that and hold. And then when we start to move again, all the blood comes flowing back into that area that was really tender. And we get a little bit better circulation in the tissues. So that's really what we're looking to do here, is to just make all those tender spots release. And now I'm going to bring the ball right underneath my heel and move that side to side. Again, notice how the front of my foot is angled and down on the carpet. And I'm just turning my heels side to side. Again, looking for any tenderness. And then I'm going to bring the ball right underneath the toes and do my little exercises. So I lift and create as much space as possible between the toes and grip. Since we're in the middle of COVID-19 right now, you can think of these toes practicing their social distancing skills, trying to get as far away from each other as possible. And one more time we lift, and then gripping that ball, I'm going to just lift my big toe and practice that, making that connection from my brain all the way down to my toe. And then try with the second toe. This side is not quite as good as my right. And getting the final remaining toes. And kind of go back and forth, creating a little wave here. See which toes want to work a little bit more independently, which go together. And hopefully your feet feel so much better now, and you have nice and happy feet, and just notice how that work maybe reflects in the rest of your body. See if your head and your neck feel a little better, and just notice that. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day.